The Golden Bachelor's Mel Owens' shocking fantasy suite date choices, October 23rd, 2025. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bachelor Nation News fans. The Golden Bachelor Season 2 lead Mel Owens has chosen his final two women with whom he'll share overnight fantasy suite dates after meeting their families during their hometown dates. Mel, a 66-year-old NFL player turned lawyer and divorced dad of two sons from Detroit, Michigan, began his Golden Bachelor journey with 23 women aged 58 to 77. He faced fierce backlash before his season began because of ageist comments that he made on the In the Trenches podcast. Mel had stated that he only wanted to date women aged 45 to 60 and that he'd cut anyone over the age of 60 from his cast. In addition, he said that he didn't want to date any women with artificial hips or wigs. Because of this, many Golden Bachelor fans called for him to be fired. However, Mel's season began with him apologizing to the women, and his path to finding love has been successful so far. Throughout the Golden Bachelor Season 2, Mel built strong relationships with his final three women. Cindy Cullors, a 60-year-old divorced retired biomedical engineer from Austin, Texas; Debbie Siebers, a 65-year-old fitness professional from Denver, Colorado, who's never been married; and Peg Munson, a 62-year-old divorced retired firefighter and bomb tech from Las Vegas, Nevada. Now he's narrowed them down to his final two after a shocking elimination. Mel chose Cindy and Peg for his overnight fantasy suite dates. After Mel maxed Cindy, Debbie, and Peg's families, he chose Cindy and Peg for his overnight fantasy suite dates. Mel's first hometown date was with Peg in Las Vegas, where he met her fellow firefighters and her mother, brother, sister-in-law, daughter, and daughter's boyfriend. Peg told her mother that she would say yes to a proposal from Mel. During Cindy's hometown date in Austin, he met her three daughters, her son-in-law, and her soon-to-be son-in-law. She told her daughters that she'd be willing to move to California for Mel. Cindy also let Mel know that she was falling for him, but she stopped herself from telling him that she loved him because she needed more reassurance from him before she said it. Mel sent Debbie home. Where Mel chose Cindy and Peg from his final two women, it meant that he had to say goodbye to Debbie. During her hometown date in Denver, Mel met her two brothers, her two sisters, including her twin, and her brother-in-law. Debbie had told Mel that she was falling for him, and they seemed to have a really deep connection. She seemed like a front-runner from the beginning. However, his connections with the other women were stronger, so he shockingly sent Debbie home. Although Debbie was devastated by Mel breaking up with her, she wished him well. She said in her confessional that she'd put herself out there in a big way, only to have yet another disappointment. Debbie cried that it was beyond painful. It's going to be very exciting to see who Mel chooses in the end, Cindy or Peg, and if he proposes to her. It would also be wonderful to see Debbie become the next star of the Golden Bachelorette. Mel, Cindy, Peg, and Debbie all deserve love and happiness, and hopefully they'll find it sooner than later and live happily ever after.
Soft and golden over Costa Rica's lush hills, brushing the treetops in glimmers of morning fire. The resort where the Golden Bachelor had set its final stage shimmered like a dream, but inside, 72-year-old Mel Owens stood alone on his villa balcony, gripping his coffee mug as though it might anchor him to reason. Fantasy Suite Week. The week that every bachelor feared and every fan lived for. Mel, widowed for over a decade, had come into this journey looking for someone to watch sunsets with. He'd said it simply in that deep, gravelly voice during episode 1, and America had fallen in love. His humor, his warmth, the way his blue eyes softened whenever one of the women opened up about loss, it all made him the ultimate gentleman of second chances. But now he was supposed to narrow down his heart to one. 3 women remained. Cindy, the fiercely intelligent retired school principal from Oregon; Marla, the vivacious dance instructor with silver-streaked hair and a heart that still beat like it was 25; and Renee, the quiet widow from Florida who had surprised everyone, including herself, by making it this far. The producers had been teasing shocking decisions all season, but even they didn't yet know the turn Mel's story would take. He whispered to himself, "How do you choose when every choice feels like a goodbye?" Cindy was up first for her confessional. Sitting by the pool in a flowing turquoise dress, she told producers she believed her connection with Mel was stronger than ever. "I can see a future with him," she said, her voice confident. "We've been through the hard conversations about trust, about love after loss, and I think he feels safe with me." Fans online were already calling her the front runner. She had the poise, the calm energy, the final rose vibe. But Marla was the wild card. She'd been fiery since day one, teaching Mel to salsa in the mansion, cracking jokes, refusing to let age dull her flirtatious charm. To her, life was about joy, and she made Mel laugh like no one else could. And then there was Renee, the one everyone underestimated. Her quiet compassion had a gravity of its own. She didn't chase the spotlight, she let emotion speak for her. Each woman represented something different for Mel: mind, body, and soul. The Golden Bachelor Nation was torn. Who would he take to the fantasy suite? Cindy's fantasy suite date. The first date was Cindy's. The two rode horses through the Costa Rican countryside, laughter echoing against the hills. Mel looked at her and thought of steadiness, of what it meant to have someone you could build with. "You make me feel like I can exhale," Mel said softly as they dismounted by a waterfall. Cindy smiled, brushing her hair back. "You don't have to perform with me, Mel. You can just be." Their dinner was candlelit, intimate, and that's when producers slid the fantasy suite card across the table. Cindy's eyes softened. "Only if you're ready," she whispered. He was. That night, cameras captured only the outside of their suite, the flicker of candles through gauzy curtains, the silhouettes of two people rediscovering what closeness could mean at 72. The next morning, Cindy emerged radiant, but grounded. She said in her interview, "It felt natural, like coming home." But Mel's expression was complicated. He looked haunted. Because even as Cindy held his hand at breakfast, he couldn't stop thinking about the other two. When Marla arrived, she practically danced out of the SUV. "I hope you brought your dancing shoes, handsome." The producers had planned an adventure date, ziplining through the jungle canopy, and Mel, surprisingly, was game. Their laughter echoed through the trees as they soared side by side, two silver-haired silhouettes against the endless green. Later, over dinner, Marla turned serious. "Mel," she said, "you've been through so much. Losing your wife, raising your kids alone. Do you really think you're ready to love again?" He stared at her. "You're the first woman who's asked me that directly." "I needed to, because I don't want to be a placeholder for grief." That hit him like a stone. Marla was right. He was still grieving in some corner of his heart. When the fantasy suite card came, she looked him in the eyes. "I don't need a fairy tale tonight. I need honesty. Do you want to spend this time with me, not as the Bachelor, but as Mel?" And he said yes. The next morning, when cameras returned, both looked emotionally spent. Not regretful, but raw. Mel's confession was simple. "Marla reminded me that love isn't something you get over, it's something you build again." By the time Renee's date arrived, rumors were already swirling. Was Mel too close to Cindy? Had sparks with Marla turned serious? Renee didn't care. She'd been quiet all season, letting her empathy do the talking. Their date was a boat ride on Lake Arenal, surrounded by volcano views and soft rain. She brought him a small photo, her late husband, smiling. "He'd want me to be brave," she told Mel. And Mel, moved beyond words, took her hand. "You remind me why I came here. To believe again." When the fantasy suite card appeared, Renee hesitated. "I don't want this to be about pressure," she said gently. "I just want time. Just us, no cameras." Mel smiled, the first real smile in days. "Then that's exactly what we'll have." The next morning, when cameras emerged, both were quiet, not glowing, but peaceful.
There was no showy passion, no big reveal, just two souls who'd shared something real. The decision Mel wasn't supposed to make. Back in his villa, Mel sat alone again. The 3 fantasy suites had left him with 3 very different truths. With Cindy, he felt safe. With Marla, he felt alive. With Renee, he felt understood. But love wasn't math. It wasn't about balancing columns of comfort, excitement, and peace. And that night, he called the producers in for a private meeting. "I can't do this the way you want me to," he said quietly. "I can't give a rose to 2 women when my heart's torn 3 ways." The producers were stunned. They'd never had a Golden Bachelor refuse the format before. Mel continued, "I don't want to fake clarity. These women deserve honesty, not ceremony." Word leaked. Social media exploded. "Mel breaks the rules," screamed the promos. But Mel didn't care. He'd been through too much in life to trade integrity for ratings. The women arrived at the rose ceremony unaware. The candles flickered, the music swelled, and Mel stepped out, his hands trembling slightly. "Tonight," he began, voice thick with emotion, "I was supposed to hand out 2 roses, but after this week, I can't." Gasps rippled through the room. Cindy looked confused. Marla raised an eyebrow. Renee's eyes welled up instantly. "I've shared moments with each of you that I'll carry for the rest of my life, but it wouldn't be fair to any of you for me to choose when I'm still unsure. I don't want to lead anyone on, and I don't want to break anyone's heart in public." Cindy shook her head, whispering, "What are you saying, Mel?" "I'm saying I need to step back, alone, before I can move forward with anyone." The women stood in silence. And then something incredible happened. Instead of storming off or accusing him of cowardice, Renee walked up and hugged him. "Thank you for being honest," she whispered. "Most men wouldn't." Marla followed, smiling sadly. "You're breaking the rules, but I kind of love that." Cindy, tears streaming, said only, "Then I hope you find your answer, Mel. We all deserve the real thing." The next morning, Bachelor Nation imploded. Twitter was ablaze. #Melgate trended for 3 straight days. Some called him a hero, like, finally, a bachelor who put feelings over format. Others called him indecisive. Producers were panicking. ABC execs scrambled to spin it as a historic, heartfelt tryst. But Mel was silent. He'd checked out of the resort and flown home to Chicago, determined to think things through without cameras. For 2 weeks, America waited. Paparazzi snapped photos of him walking his dog, grocery shopping, looking pensive. Rumors swirled. Was he seeing Cindy privately? Did he regret leaving Renee? Finally, in a surprise after the final rose taping, Mel agreed to tell all. Jesse Palmer welcomed him back with his usual calm charisma. "So, Mel, the question on everyone's mind, did you make a mistake?" Mel smiled faintly. "No, I made a choice to be real." He turned to the audience. "I've lost a wife. I've lost friends. And what I've learned is that love deserves patience. These women, Cindy, Marla, Renee, they reminded me that life doesn't end when you lose someone, but you can't rush healing into romance." Then came the twist. Jesse revealed a clip filmed a week earlier. It showed Mel standing in a park, waiting. A car pulled up. Renee stepped out. The audience gasped. She walked up to him, smiling shyly. "You found your answer?" He nodded. "I did. It was always you, the quiet voice that never asked for anything except truth."
The ocean was calm that morning, the kind of calm that felt deceptive. The kind that promised beauty and danger in the same breath. The Mexican sun painted gold streaks across the water, and somewhere on that glittering coast, Mel Owens, America's most talked-about man over 60, stood barefoot on the balcony of his villa, coffee in hand, staring into the horizon. He was supposed to feel peace, the kind producers kept calling closure, but peace, he thought, had never come with cameras. 3 women remained. 3 stories, 3 lives, and 3 possible futures.
there was Diane, the artist from Sedona, whose eyes saw the world in color and chaos. Veronica, the retired Broadway singer, who could still make an empty room feel like a standing ovation. And Lynn, the gentle widow, who reminded Mel what quiet companionship could mean after decades of noise. Fantasy Suite Week wasn't just about romance, it was about truth. And truth, Mel knew, was about to destroy at least 2 hearts. The producer's whisper. "Mel, we're ready when you are." It was Rachel, the ever-present field producer, her headset tangled in the salty breeze. She gave him that half smile, the one that said she'd seen too many tears and proposals to count. He nodded, still lost in thought. 3 nights, he said under his breath. 3 futures. "America's gonna love this week," Rachel replied. "Just remember, follow your heart. Don't overthink it." Mel chuckled. "Rachel, I've made a career out of overthinking. You don't stop that at 65. Fantasy Suite number 1, Diane, the wild card. Diane's date began in the art village of San Jose del Cabo. Mel could still smell the paint on her fingers as she guided him through a local gallery. "Art isn't about control," she said, brushing color onto a blank canvas they were painting together. "It's about trust, letting go." Mel laughed. "I've been letting go all season. My fans call it emotional therapy." She leaned close, paint smudged across her cheek, whispering, "Maybe you haven't let go of everything yet." There was something in her tone that both thrilled and terrified him. As night fell, they moved to the resort rooftop, strings of lights glowing above them. The dinner was private, yet the cameras watched from a distance, like fireflies pretending not to see. Diane reached across the table. "You scare me, Mel," she admitted, "because when you look at me, I stop pretending, and that's something I haven't done in years." Mel exhaled slowly. "That's not fear, Diane. That's honesty." When she handed him the envelope, the Fantasy Suite card, her hands trembled. "For more time, without cameras," it read. The world seemed to still. Behind closed doors. Later, the door closed with a soft click. The cameras were gone. The world disappeared. Diane poured 2 glasses of wine and said softly, "Do you ever think about what happens after all this? When the lights go off and you're just you again?" "All the time," Mel said. "That's the part I'm scared of." They talked until the candles burned down to stubs, about their losses, their children, their second chances. And when she kissed him, it wasn't the kind of kiss that came from lust. It was the kind that whispered, "I still believe in beginnings." But deep inside, as he lay awake later, Mel knew something wasn't right. It was beautiful. It just wasn't forever. The next evening, Mel walked into a private beachside concert arranged by production. A small stage, a baby grand piano, and Veronica, draped in silver silk, waiting with a knowing smile. "You didn't think I'd let Fantasy Suites happen without one more performance, did you?" she teased. Her voice filled the air, rich, soulful, effortless. The lyrics weren't scripted, they were hers. "If love is kind, it finds us twice. If hope still breathes, it breaks the ice. And if your heart can heal again, then maybe, darling, let me in." By the end, Mel's eyes glistened. "You sing like you've lived 1,000 lives," Mel whispered. "I have," she said simply, "and I want one more, with you." The night unfolded in laughter and soft confession. She spoke of the years she had spent alone after her divorce, of how fame had faded, but the ache of love had not. When the Fantasy Suite card appeared, she didn't hesitate. "Let's write a new duet," she said. Inside the suite, the air felt electric. Veronica's laughter danced through the room as she pulled him close. They talked, they kissed, they remembered what it meant to feel wanted. But when dawn broke, Mel noticed something heavy behind her smile. "Tell me what's wrong," he said softly. She hesitated. "You love me for my past, Mel, but do you love who I am now?" He didn't answer right away, and the silence said everything. By the 3rd night, Mel was exhausted, emotionally, spiritually, and maybe even physically. He wondered if it was too much to expect clarity after 2 whirlwind evenings. Then Lynn arrived. Her date was simple. No grand gestures, no fireworks. Just a slow walk through a local market and dinner by a quiet lagoon. She brought peace into chaos, the way someone who had survived loss could. At one point, she handed him a small photograph, a picture of her and her late husband. She said, "He taught me that love is about listening. I think you're ready to listen again, Mel." Mel felt tears sting his eyes. "I'm trying," he said. "I know," she said, squeezing his hand. "That's enough." When the fantasy suite card appeared, she didn't hesitate. She just looked at him with that patient smile. He nodded. "Yes, let's have more time." The night that changed everything. Their suite was quieter than the others. No wine glasses, no grand speeches. Just 2 people sitting barefoot on a balcony sharing stories until the stars faded. Lynn spoke of her children, of the loneliness that came with losing not just a husband, but a rhythm of life. Mel spoke of guilt, how he sometimes felt selfish for wanting love again. She listened, really listened. And when she finally reached out and touched his face, she said, "It's okay to be happy again. You've earned it." That night wasn't about passion, it was about presence. And for the first time all season, Mel felt peace. The next morning, Mel sat alone in his villa. 3 dates, 3 truths. Diane showed him fire. Veronica showed him memory. Lynn showed him peace. Rachel appeared again, holding a clipboard. "The audience will never see this part," she reminded him. "But your decision, whatever it is, will change how the world sees love at your age." He looked out the window. Love doesn't care about age. It just cares about courage. When the rose ceremony arrived, Mel's hands trembled as he held the final rose. The women stood before him, each beautiful, vulnerable, real. He looked at Diane first. "You brought color back into my world," he said, "but sometimes color fades." She nodded, tears falling, but graceful to the end. "I'll paint us a happy ending anyway," she whispered, before walking away. Then Veronica, "You reminded me what passion feels like," Mel said. "But passion alone isn't home." Veronica's lip quivered, but she smiled bravely. "Then find home, Mel. You deserve it." When Lynn stepped forward, he took her hand and said simply, "You are my calm." The audience watching weeks later would gasp. Some would cheer, some would rage, but Mel just exhaled. In the days that followed, tabloids would scream headlines like, "Golden Bachelor shock! Mel's fantasy suite choices leave fans divided." Did Mel break 2 hearts in 1 week? The Bachelor franchise's most mature love story yet? But for Mel Owens, the noise didn't matter anymore. He walked the same beach alone one last time before leaving Mexico. The tide erased his footprints behind him, like none of it had ever happened. But the feeling, the quiet certainty that love could still surprise him, remained. A camera drone hummed in the distance. Rachel's voice echoed through his earpiece. "Mel, one last pickup shot, just a line about how you're feeling." He turned toward the ocean, smiled, and said softly, "Love doesn't end when you get older, it just gets braver." And somewhere, millions of viewers watching at home, some divorced, some widowed, some simply lonely, felt something stir inside them.